The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports. You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators.
We are no longer talking about how awesome, incredible, and relieving it is that the Florida Gators are national champions once again. Now we are talking about that same Florida Gators team could be seeing a lot of roster turnover this offseason, right? And look, that's not surprising. This Florida Gators team was one of the more senior teams in college basketball. And I feel like in recent years, especially, we've seen those more senior teams are more likely to win a national championship or to just go on a deep run because of their experience, their maturity, their ability to handle adversity and deal with that, right? And the Florida Gators are losing quite a bit, but most notably, most important, the Florida Gators are losing the best player in program history, the only first-team All-American in program history, in Walter Creighton Jr. Walter Creighton Jr. led this team to the absolute promised land, right? Was dynamite from three, was an electric player all around, and was the best guard in the country. I don't care about any who won what award. Walter Creighton Jr. is the best player in the country this year, if you're asking me. And if you're not asking me, I don't know why you're here, right? I will say that. But for the Florida Gators, losing Walter Creighton is huge. Of course, he was incredibly efficient, incredibly effective. And his only, like when we talk about Walter Creighton Jr., he had really two flaws, right? One, that he would turn the ball over. And two, that at times he would be relatively disengaged defensively. And that's more frustrating than just being a bad defender, right? Like, if you're a bad defender, but you're trying and you're out there and you're hustling and you're doing all these things, that's different than just someone who isn't trying their hardest. And when tournament time came, Walter Creighton Jr. said, all right, time to tighten up, time to go win a ring. And that's what he did. He tightened up defensively. He got a lot better. Had blocks coming out all of a sudden, way more than usual. Great player. That is going to be gone. He's going to go to the NBA. He's going to get drafted, and he's hopefully going to find a spot where he can last and thrive for a while. I think especially as we can look at Walter Creighton Jr. and say, hey, best player in program history, right? NBA teams will look at him and probably say, backup guard with potential to become a starter if he becomes more consistently engaged on defense. But that's how we can look at Walter Creighton there. Losing Elijah Martin, right? Your other starting guard. Again, I count, I usually, when I talk about Will Richard, I understand guard is how many people will talk about him. I understand that's probably how you should talk about him. But for me, I just think of him as the small forward here, even though he's 6'4", 6'5". But losing Elijah Martin, we'll talk about Will Richard in a second. Losing Elijah Martin, huge. He was a stabilizing presence for this team, especially when tournament time came. He took on more of a leadership role, as did Walter Creighton, but he took on more of a leadership role, and he was hammering home the things that this team needs to do, keeping their head on straight. Elijah Martin, an elite finisher around the rim, had poster dunks, transition dunks that just lit up the crowd, lit up my living room. And he's going to be sorely missed. His experience was invaluable. And I know that people don't think of him as a shooter, but I will say I do think that 35% from three, including some games he's had where he shot like 0 for 4, 1 for 6, whatever it may be, I do think shooting 35% from three, considering that, pretty good. Again, elite finisher around the rim. I think the best overall defender on the team, or as the guards, I think at least. And he's going to be gone, and Florida's going to sorely miss him. Then there's Will Richard, who I think was an analytical coach's dream, right? Which Todd Golden, as we know, one of the most analytically oriented coaches in the country. I think Will Richard was an analytical coach's dream. Will Richard did not shoot a lot, but when he did, they were almost always around the rim twos, catch and shoot threes. He wasn't doing a ton off the dribble, from three at least. Wasn't doing a ton off the dribble, and a lot of his twos came on dunks or in transition or offensive rebounds and putbacks, things like that. And so Will Richard was Todd Golden's, creative player, right? That's it. That's what he was. He had the highest effective field goal percentage on the team from the guards. He was slightly behind Ruben Chinilu for the lead for the entire team. He had the highest true shooting percentage on the team, or tied for it with Thomas Houck. He shot 67% from two, most of which were dunks and layups or shots right around the rim. Shot 36% from three, including some elite clutch shots. Shot 85% from the free throw line. Would get steals pretty consistently and was probably the best on-ball steal getter, I guess we'll call him, on this team. They're all gone. They're all seniors. They're all gone. Then we have to acknowledge the two legitimate possibilities here, right? Not that they are the only two options, but these are two things that could happen. One, and I've said this before, and I will continue to say this, I am expecting both Alex Condon and Thomas Houck to declare for the NBA draft. And I say that because declaring for the NBA draft is different from declaring for the NFL draft, okay? The NFL draft, it is mostly, I am still in college. I submit to the NFL Draft Advisory Board. I get a response on what teams think of me. And then I decide to declare or not declare. Okay? With the NBA, you can declare, go through the pre-draft process, go through the NBA combine, get your results, and then decide to go back to school. We've seen Florida Gators do it recently. We've had multiple Florida Gators do it in recent years. So that's all a possibility. So that's why I say I would expect Alex Condon and Thomas Houck to both declare for the NBA draft, because I think they should. I think they should declare for the draft. First off, get your name in front of NBA scouts, GMs, coaches, whoever's going to be there. Get your name out there. Declare for the draft. Go through the combine process. Go through all that. And then I think that the response they would get would be second-round picks, maybe a late first, but second-round picks. Keep the door open to return, because, again, you could do that in the NBA, or you could do that with the NBA draft. You could declare and come back to your original school, or declare and hit the portal. And I think that generally with the NBA, the way that I look at it is, if you are not a lottery pick, there is no need for you to come out earlier than you need to. Right? And so I do think that we'll see both declare, but I also think we'll see both come back, because I think that both will be looked at as second-round picks, especially with Thomas Houck. His sample size is small because he started playing great, especially in the biggest moments, right? Especially in tournament play. But he wasn't America's sixth man for much of the season. He was our sixth man. We loved him. We die for him. But he wasn't this America's sweetheart that he's become. And Alex Condon has played, like I've been saying, since the start of the SEC tournament. I think he's played fairly poorly. And so I do think that NBA teams will look at that and say, well, you really folded when it was most important, and so come back. And again, I don't think Alex Condon is a bad player. I said this yesterday. One of the reasons I'm so hard on Alex Condon is because I think he could be truly great. That's one of the reasons I'm so hard on him. I think he could be great. I expect more from him. Okay? I will also say that I would expect at least a player or two to hit the portal. I feel like most people could probably expect that at some point. We'll talk about maybe who that might be.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. There are so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance at even bigger winnings. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Houston officially gets commitment out of Pop Isaacs. Pop Isaacs is from Las Vegas, Nevada, which will be really important in a second. Pop Isaacs is most recently from Creighton. He went to Texas Tech. He started at both places, was all Big 12 freshman team at Texas Tech, yada, yada, yada. At Creighton, he played just 8 games before having a hip injury, but in those 8 games, he averaged 16.3 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 3.9 assists, right? So a true game changer for them before injury. And really, I think a lot of people at just the Pop Isaacs level of this are wondering how he fits because he's an electric scorer. He's had his stuff, right? And I think people are wondering how he fits into Houston on the floor more from the defensive side of things, right? He's not known as a lockdown defender. He's not known as the guy that throws his body into things, et cetera. And he's not known for those kinds of moments yet. I think that's kind of the intentional play here if you're looking at what Pop Isaacs is doing. Full disclosure, I had heard some rumblings about this in the last 10 days. And then I heard one guy say, like, I think he's really just using it to kind of up his NIL budget or money or whatever at Ole Miss. And then I heard one guy say, no, that other guy's completely wrong. He'd rather go to Houston. He wants to play for Beard or Sampson or whatever because he wants to improve his image. He understands what his image is out there, and he wants to show people what he can do, yada, yada, yada. That's been the conversation around this for like 10 days. And honestly, it sounded like it was going to happen this week. I did not think it would happen 24 hours after the national title game tipped off, really. Not even a full 24 hours after the season was over. And so that's a pretty significant bombshell of news, right? And Pop Isaacs is a true electric microwave level scorer where he can just get hot in an instant, right? That is dynamic, game-changing, and frankly, with LJ Cryer moving on to basketball somewhere, I don't know if he'll get G League, NBA, Europe, some combination of all that in his career in the coming years. But with him leaving Houston, Pop Isaacs coming into Houston feels like that kind of tit for tat, pulling one in right there, right? And I think that that's interesting because what's alarming to me, like when I commented about this on Instagram, Twitter, etc., the commentary surrounding Pop's commitment to Houston is ultimately feels a lot like when Cryer committed to Houston, right? Cryer came to Houston, everyone's saying that guy is a selfish shooter that can't do anything besides shoot the ball, right? And while he did shoot the ball really well at Houston, obviously, honestly, he did a lot more once he got there. He grew into the kind of defender Houston wanted. He was a true leader this year as a senior. He did dirty work. He guarded big guys. In the national championship game, he's battling and boxing and fighting with bigs, tagging rollers and stuff like that on the inside. Pop Isaac sees that. They're both about 6'2". If anything, Pop Isaac's a little bit heavier build. And he thinks I can go show that I can do that as well, right? Offensively, they both had a fairly similar resume coming into Houston. The other thing I think is interesting for Pop Isaacs and coming to Houston versus Ole Miss, and this is no shot at the Ole Miss program, but people still think of Chris Beard and the stuff that went down with him at Texas as like some off-the-court kind of issues, right? Honestly, Pop Isaacs going to come to Houston, and in rebuilding his image, people know Sampson's not going to put up with that. Sampson and Company have built a program where they can pick and choose what problems they want, and they have been explicit about not wanting those kinds of problems. If Pop Isaacs is going to play at Houston, those kind of problems aren't going to persist, right? And so off the court stuff, I feel like he's also kind of using Houston as a place to rebuild his image. Now, I say using Houston, but Houston's not going to get used here, right? Houston is going to play the guys that fit, and Pop Isaac's going to have to fit in or not play. That's the way it goes here. We've seen Houston not play really talented guys because they didn't quite fit, right? Now, I still have to say that I'm excited about this. I think it's interesting. I think it's intriguing. I think a lot of people are jumping to questions about what this means for the rest of the roster. And it is 2025, folks. People turn over rosters all the time. You can't get your feelings too hurt if someone were to up and leave. However, I don't think this means anything definitive is happening yet. Will there be movement? Almost definitely. It's modern college basketball. But does this mean like Milos Uzan is leaving at point guard? No. I think it could actually mean the opposite. Do I think Milos will go through the NBA draft process? Absolutely. He's going to go get evaluated, get his notes, and I imagine he comes back. Sampson's been adamant that he loves when people do that because they get notes on their game and how to improve, right? That's a good thing. Generally, that's a good thing. He also, Sampson has said things about like, it's worth their while, and he's never going to tell a kid to not go take a bunch of money to go play basketball, right? I don't think Milos is going to hear stuff about going into first round. Right now, he might. We'll see. But if he hears second round stuff, he probably comes back to Houston. Milos and Pop Isaacs are friends. They are both from Las Vegas. They initially went to Prolific Prep together before Pop Isaacs decided to go to Wasatch Academy instead. If my sleuthing here and texting and DMing people serves me right anyway. They both started out going to Prolific Prep, both from Vegas. They both finished up playing back in their hometown of Las Vegas for their senior of high school. There were rumors last offseason on different message boards that these two might have been a package deal in the offseason last year in the transfer portal before ultimately not being one. I think Pop Isaacs coming to Houston actually might increase the likelihood of Milos Uzan coming back to Houston. And I think that that's important to note here. It's not quite Paul George and Kawhi Leonard being a package deal for the Clippers or anything like that, that kind of a connection. But I do think that there could be some encouragement to bring Milos back if his buddy's coming. Now, I will say that he offers a different skill set than like Isaiah Harwell, than Emmanuel Sharp, than Kingston Fleming. The backcourt's getting crowded. But what I don't think, I'm trying to think how to say this, I don't think that impacts the guys that get a lot of minutes right now. I think you're more likely to see a more evenly dispersed set of minutes amongst those guys where it's more like 27, 27, 25, 25 kind of minutes as opposed to 35 kind of minutes amongst some of those guys. And you're more likely to see guys further down the roster be like, I don't know where I fit in here. Maybe Coach Q takes a couple to Louisiana as well. We'll see where those kinds of things pan out. But I would not worry about the guys at the top of the roster, at the top of the minute chart, I should say. Getting worried about this one. Everyone who signs up for Houston, 5-star freshman included, transfer portal guy included, returner included, everyone who signs up for Houston knows what they signed up for. Sampson doesn't, beat around the bush about it. The program is long established. The success of the program is established. The success of the culture is established. They're not going to show up and say, well, actually, I thought I was going. No, there's been no fibbing, no lying. Guys coming to the program know what they're getting into. And I think, like I said with Jarris Walker back when he committed as a 5-star, like I said with Marcus Sasser when he said he was coming back, like I said with Jamal Shell when he said he was coming back, guys come back knowing what they're getting into. And I think it tells us a lot about the kind of guy they are when they sign up for this. This ain't easy. The way Houston does things is never going to be easy. Being a Houston Cougar is not going to ever be easy, right? And when you sign up to come be one, you know what you're getting into. And I think that tells us a lot about the growth of Pop Isaacs, right? Whatever you thought of him when he was at Tech, whatever you thought of him when he committed to Creighton, whatever you thought about him wherever, right? This tells you something different than most of the national narrative about the kid, right? He's going to have to score. There's some like threshold of ability that you have to be in the program. Yes. But also, he clearly wants to go somewhere to work on his defense. to work on his image, to work on the way he fits into a program, right? And ultimately to win, right? And I think that you're going to see a lot of that come out. Now, does that mean it's a guarantee? No. It's going to be awkward at first. It's going to be like fitting in Miles Suzanne last year at the start of the year. You're going to take some lumps in November trying to figure all the pieces out. But as Coach Sampson always says, the goal is not to be good in November. The goal is to be good in March. The goal is to be good in April. The goal is to be good cutting down nets on that Monday in April. And Houston was so close just 48 hours ago. And the goal is to be past that mark this time next year, right? And so that's why this move makes a lot of sense to me.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels.
Seth Trimble is staying in school. He's not going to the transfer portal. He's not going to the draft. Seth Trimble will play his senior year at North Carolina. And several things about that. Number one, this is what college athletics is supposed to be. Stay, develop, grow. And I mean that as a player and as a human, right? Like Coach Smith talked about that all the time. That was one of his big goals. And I was just having a conversation with somebody on Tuesday. I remember who it was, but I should probably keep them anonymous. They just don't like to have their name out there. But we were just kind of lamenting the state of things right now, where even with your opponents leaving, right? Like the Duke rivalry is still the Duke rivalry, but I feel like it's not as strong because you don't have, 4 years of Grayson Allen or 4 years of whomever to learn to hate, you love to hate them or whatever it is. But even the guys you respect, like a Shane Battier or something, I don't know, it's like, man, they were just around and you got to know them and who they were. And it just made the rivalry matter more, where both teams had multi-year guys that you really came to know. It's different now, but that's what Seth Trimble's doing. And it's cool because Carolina has had this type of player now for 4 straight years, probably even before that, but just, I have the COVID of it in my mind. So 4 teams ago was Leaky Black's 5th year. He used his COVID eligibility. Then Armando Bacot used his COVID eligibility for a 5th year. This past season, RJ Davis used his 5th year of COVID eligibility. COVID eligibility, by the way, is gone now because that RJ's class was the last one that had that. And now Seth sticks around for his last year. I think it's great, man. It's so good. I'm so happy for him to make this decision. I'm so happy for Carolina because I think it's a big win in terms of, I've been talking about the leadership that was missing last year. I think Seth could bring that, man. I think he could be the one. I would love to see more of that vocally from him. But man, there's talent and all of that kind of stuff that he can bring as well. So this really is big time for Carolina, period. Stop. It's big time for Carolina, but particularly big time the day after it was announced that Ian Jackson was entering the transfer portal, because that then means that your backcourt hangs in the precipice of being completely decimated because RJ Davis is out of eligibility. Elliot Cadeau transferred to Michigan. Ian Jackson now out the door as well. And it's like, if Seth turns pro or goes somewhere else, that's your entire backcourt you got to replace. That sounds awful and miserable. So now you've got a foundation, a bedrock, a cornerstone to start on with Seth Trimble, and you bring these other guys in like what we're talking about. I think Jonathan Powell might play the two some coming in from West Virginia, but it's like you need more of these guys to fill out those backcourt positions. And so I think that's important. So it's important the day after Ian Jackson portals, you retain one of your backcourt guys. And also, it's not just any guy. This is a guy who played the third most total minutes last year and a guy who averaged the second most minutes per player last year per game. Like, those things matter and they add up. And those are the teams you see winning championships, not Duke, not other freshman-led teams. It's senior experienced teams like Houston and Florida. That's who was standing on championship Monday night. Let's get to some of Seth's numbers. Just kind of look inside it a little bit. The storyline so much of the season about Seth leading the team in rebounding. Van Allen Lubin actually bested him to lead. Van Allen was 5.5 boards a game, and Elliott, good grief, Elliott. No, Seth had 5 rebounds a game, so just behind him. But Seth was legitimately second to Van Allen Lubin in both rebounds per game and total rebounds. Like, that's crazy. Please do not let that be the case again this year. We want Seth to be up there. We need Seth rebounding because of his athleticism and everything he does, but he should not be that high. Should not be that high, plain and simple. Seth's numbers last year, 11.6 points. That was third on the team. 5 boards. Again, that was second on the team. 1.3 assists. That's third on the team. 1.4 steals. That led the team. 28.6% from 3. Like, we got to call out that hole in the game. That was the lowest of any Tar Heel that made a 3 last year or attempted a 3. But on the flip side, Seth Trimble, 82.1% from the free throw line last year. That was second and only second because RJ's absurd. As a reminder, in Seth's first year in Chapel Hill, he shot 54.8% from the free throw line. Last year, his sophomore year, 66.7%. All the way up to 82.1. That is a come up. And when you combine that with the 3-point numbers, right? You look at the 3-point numbers and say 26.6%. That's bad. That's barely making more than 1 out of every 4. Got to be better than that. But here's the thing. It is worth noting that if you go back to the moment Seth got injured this year and missed, 4 games? 3 games? 3 games. In the games before he got injured, Seth, on the season, was shooting 38.5% from beyond the arc. Now, it wasn't a crazy high volume at that point, or crazy high sample size, but it was 12 games. That's enough. But then it was just like it was gone, more or less, when Seth came back. And then wound up shooting 26.6% from beyond the arc. That's not good enough. And Seth knows that, man. He knows that more than you and I do. And so he's in the lab right now. I can almost guarantee it, working on his shot day after day after day to get whatever that was back. And by the way, that 38.5% in the first 12 games was coming off a season, his sophomore year, where he shot season-long 41.9%. So it's in there with him, but it's got to be something he continues to progress in. That's the Seth Trimble of it, man. I'm so excited that he's back. I just think it adds so much to this team. This is great news for the Tar Heels. It's great news for college basketball. We should be celebrating seniors who have spent their entire career at one school. Not that the others are doing it wrong, but man, this is a special and unique thing in this day and age. So I really appreciate that. So, next, in terms of announcements, we watch for Van Allen Lubin. We watch for Drake Powell. What's going to happen there? Drake was in Seth's comments on his announcement that he was staying. Seth was writing back saying, hey, I need you to stay another year, all that. So I don't know. Is that something? It's probably not. But I was paying attention to it.